All right, today we're going to talk about the quiet invasion in video games. Now, this isn't a joke. It's not a conspiracy. This isn't some clickbait video. This is something that's really happening, and I'm not sure why people aren't talking about it more. China is buying Western games. They're buying all video games. They're owning everything, and it's not stopping. They do it silently, and they do it in a way where nobody notices, increments at a time, until they own majority stakes in companies. Riot Games, League of Legends owners and creators, are now owned by China. They have the majority stake in the company. This isn't right. I'm not sure why people aren't talking about it more. And with the influences and everything that's already happening with gaming today, if you think things like this are already bad, just wait till it gets worse. You have no idea what's coming. Listen, there's agendas, and they're a lot beyond just profit. If you think that these companies only have the idea of we're going to come in and buy Western game companies so that we can make a lot of money, I'm sure that's one end of it. But if you don't think that there's another bigger agenda and they aren't playing the long game in some kind of bigger political thing here, then you're crazy. Listen to me. Do you remember Blizzard? Do you remember the incident? Do you remember how they roasted that kid? They dragged him through the coals. He had nothing he could do about it. Prize money, gone. Tournament prize, gone. Everything that he had, everything that he won, gone. It incited a big riot. And, I'm happy it all happened because it exposed things for what they really are. But that's scary. And that was a long time ago. And we haven't really had such a big incident since. But if you don't think things like that are already being swept under the rug and more is coming, then you don't know what you're in for. Listen, Chinese censorship and how it's going to affect our games in the future is a big deal. We are already arguing amongst ourselves about things that are happening in Western games now. Things like political ideas, genders, whether or not character creators are done properly, just all kinds of nonsense. I don't even want to say the other things because it's just people argue, and I'm not trying to get people to argue. I just want people to kind of have a heads up and realize what's happening here. I think that they do it in a way that people don't really realize it's going on, and then honestly, it's too late by the time we start talking about it. Look at the games we have now. Cyberpunk, GTA, the new GTA coming looks like they aren't going to be toning things down and keeping it the same obnoxious and brash style that we all loved. But do you think when these companies are all owned by China that we're going to still get games like this? Do you think China would be putting out a game like Cyberpunk? I really don't. I'm not sure that you guys do think that either. So really, why aren't we talking about it more? Why aren't we getting upset? I'm not saying we should all be going and rioting about it, but we made a big deal about it when we realized it was a big deal with the Blitzchung thing. So if we made a big deal about it then, why aren't we making a big deal about it now? It hasn't gotten better. It's only gotten worse. They've just gotten better at hiding it. I'm not sure why it's even allowed. If you looked at a Western gaming company, do you think that if any other place in the world came in to try and purchase them, we would say no? No, it's fine. We're not being, biased towards anyone else. I don't think it's just because it's China. I just see that they're the ones doing it. You don't see Poland or Russia or Brazil or I'm just naming random countries off the top of my head coming in and buying up all the Western developers. Now, I understand that's because it's a money thing too, but I'm saying there's obviously some agenda here. Tencent is coming in and buying up stakes in everybody. You don't think that's going to have an effect on the future? Man, imagine if a game like GTA 6 were to be coming out and then Tencent purchased the majority stakes in the company. How much censorship do you think would happen in that game? I'm betting a lot. If you guys think that I'm having a double standard here, let's just look at one other thing here. And it's a better example. Let's look at movies. Disney and Western film companies bend over backwards. I'm talking no Vaseline here to do anything China wants them to do in order for those movies to be released in the Chinese market. Because it's such a huge market, they can't really afford to not do it, so it happens. Now, do you think that when this happens in gaming, it's talked about as loudly or we notice it as much? I really don't, and I'm not sure why not. Listen, credit where credit's due. They do make great games. Look at Black Myth Wukong that just came out. They're taking formulas we started and improving upon them and making them better and doing their own thing. So if they're able to already do their own thing, I don't know why they don't just stick to that. Why does everything have to be a ripoff or a clone or anything like that of our games? If you look at their copyright laws and everything they have there, they're so different to what we have here. And that's why they're able to do this. Look at the cloning of games they do. You never notice on the cell phone games, if you ever take a look at the mobile market and you see pictures of what looks like Age of Empires or some other game that came out in the West, and then you realize it's just some weird Chinese spyware game that's a complete clone, literally like pixel for pixel clone. They're allowed to do that there because they're allowed to do that there. If we tried doing that here, it wouldn't go so well. It's not really even looked down upon there. So with all that being said, I don't know why we're not more worried. I'm repeating myself now about not being more worried, but I'm legitimately freaked out. The agendas that we're all already arguing with in AAA games in the West are already so silly and already so biased and this and that. You have so many little groups that just get so loud, and it makes it seem like a big majority of people care about something when really it's just this one small little loud group. But all these things are being changed in our AAA games. And we are seeing a lot of things that I understand why people are getting upset about. So if we already have all this censorship coming, do we need all the added stuff that's to come? I'm not sure we do. It's not going to be great. Now, if we look forward, there's nothing wrong with Chinese companies. I'm not saying that, and I hope that's not how this comes across. And I'm sure there's going to be some people that, no matter what I said, are going to spin it in that way. That's not what I'm saying. And I've already explained myself previously as to why I'm going on about this particular country buying our particular game companies when you don't see any other country coming into the West and buying up all the game companies. It's a very one-sided thing. We would not be allowed to go there as Americans or Canadians or any other European country and go into the Chinese market and purchase up a large majority stake in any company, let alone a company that is in an industry that is the biggest industry in the world. Let's take a quick think about that for a second. The biggest industry in the world isn't music, it isn't movies, it isn't books, it's video games. Now, where else could you go in and buy a large majority stake in the biggest industry in that country, in a company that you're not even from there, and then control it and tell them what to do and spin it around? I'm not sure that this is okay. And apparently it is, just because money goes in pockets and people shut up. It's fucked up. I'm sorry to have to say it that way, but it is. These companies bend over backwards to get whatever they want, in their pockets. And at the end of the day, the only people that are going to lose out is you and me. The people that make these decisions don't care about the quality of games. They don't care if our games are censored. They don't care what happens in our games at all. They just want to see their pockets lined. And if their pockets are getting lined, then, fuck what happens to us. That's not really fair. This is the biggest industry in the world. We have technically the biggest voice in the world. If there's the most amount of people that consume video games more than anything else, then that's a bigger population in that industry than anywhere else. So that technically means that gamers, as silly as this sounds, have a bigger voice than pretty much anybody else that is outside of actual politics, because the whole world gets involved in that. But I don't know any other industry that has more people involved in it and more people talking about it and more people inside of it on a regular basis, on a daily basis, than video games. It's the biggest industry in the world. Therefore, we have the biggest reach and the biggest voice in the world. It's the most consumed thing. That's why you're seeing all these agendas and everything being put into games. And it's already happening in the Western markets. I made a video about it before, and it doesn't seem like people can agree on anything that isn't their own opinion. So I don't know. If you guys are already worried about that, then how are we not more worried here? There's been so many examples of things like this happening, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's too late almost. They own majority stakes in so many companies. I'm not sure what we can even do about it. And it's freaking me out. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this video. Maybe someone will teach me something I don't know here, because I don't see how it's getting any better. And I don't see why it's allowed. Do you? Are you happy about this? I don't know anybody who is. But the problem is I don't really know anybody who's talking about it or that even really knows about it. So it's like one of those things that we don't care till it's blowing up in our faces. Well, it already kind of is. Western games can't even get a control of themselves. Imagine now when there's even more stuff added to that, more censorship, more agendas, more biases, more things taken out, more things added in. What's going to happen? I'm going to go back and just be playing games from 2000 and previous at some point, I think, because this is just getting crazy. They're able to make the most amazing games. Black Myth Wukong is probably going to get, no, it was omitted, so unfortunately it might not get Game of the Year. But that should be a contender. And whether or not it is or isn't, it's just proof. They're able to make amazing games. They don't have to just jump off the back of us and rip off our coding and make everything that we do and put their own little spin on it. Everything in the world and every idea is essentially a grab of some other idea with its own spin put on it. I understand that. But they just blatantly copy everything. And it's just so weird. The Chinese knockoff market is insane. And they just treat our video games like something they can do the same with. Now, between that and the censorship that's going to be added, I don't know where this is going to go. And I'm kind of freaked out. And I don't know why more people aren't. We're all just focused on being like politically correct and all this other nonsense. And nobody's focused on the things that are happening around them. And, you know, they do it in a sneaky way because they don't just come in and all of a sudden they buy 50% of the company. They do it in small increments, 10%, 4%, another 10%, 15%. And by the time you know it, they've got a majority stake. And when you have a majority stake, that means you have the majority of the decisions. And when you make the majority of the decisions, that means whatever you want and whatever biases and whatever political agendas you want to insert, you can. And there's not much anybody else can do about it. And as a game developer, it's not even really their fault. They're going to come in, they're going to go to work, and they're going to try and do something, and they're going to be told, no, you can't do this. Make sure you do that. Make sure you don't include this. Make sure you do include that. I don't know where this is all heading, but I don't think it's somewhere good. So I don't know. Let's see where it all happens and where it all goes. But I'm kind of freaked out for the future of games, to be honest, if this keeps continuing. And I'm not trying to fearmonger. I hate videos that just do that. This is not that. This is more me almost just being concerned and putting out my opinion that I'm concerned about it because I don't see enough people talking about it. So maybe that's what needs to happen is more people need to talk about it. And that's me here doing that. So I don't know. Hopefully this brings up some conversation, and I'm not sure what we could do about it besides try and get some policies changed where Chinese companies aren't allowed to come in and buy majority stake shares of American companies or even large stakes, whether or not it's the majority share or not. Any kind of influence just doesn't seem right. So, you know, that's where we're at with all this. And I hope I was able to add a little bit of something to the topic and to the conversation or spark some conversation. But I'm a little freaked out to where game is going in the future if this continues, and hopefully something's done about it, because if it continues this way, I don't see it going down a great path. And I love video games more than I love majority of things in the world. And to see that this is happening and to see that nobody cares and nothing's really being done about it, or even worse, that there's nothing we can do about it, is kind of grim. So I don't know. This wasn't the happiest of videos, but I just felt like I needed to get my 2 cents out there because it seems like not enough people are. All right. Thanks, guys. I'm out.